Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial as reported by Inner City Press. The seventh day of the Diddy trial was supposed to focus on Cassie, but then at 10:58 a.m., something happened that no one expected. 50 Cent, real name Curtis Jackson, stepped into the courtroom. No entourage, no media alert, no hint of what was about to unfold. Wearing a gray suit and holding a slim black folder, he walked straight to the front, paused, and whispered something to the bailiff. Seconds later, gasps filled the courtroom as the judge confirmed that Curtis Jackson had been sworn in and was ready to testify. What followed wasn't just shocking, it was historic. Because what 50 Cent revealed about Kim Porter, the files she had, and how she lived in fear of Diddy, painted a story darker than any album lyric or headline. This wasn't beef. This was a murder accusation under oath. The atmosphere inside the courtroom was heavy, even before anything unusual happened. It was the seventh day of the trial, and most observers expected more of the same. Emotional testimony from Cassie Ventura, routine cross-examinations, and maybe another heated back and forth between the prosecution and Diddy's defense team. But no one was prepared for what happened next. At exactly 10:46 a.m., the heavy wooden doors at the rear of the courtroom creaked open and heads turned. A tall, familiar figure entered, wearing a tailored charcoal suit with no tie. It was Curtis Jackson. 50 Cent. He didn't say a word. He didn't make eye contact with the press or the public seated in the gallery. He walked with purpose, every step echoing through the silent room. Gasps rose from the gallery. Even Cassie, who had maintained her composure through days of grueling testimony, visibly stiffened. Her eyes locked on 50 Cent as he made his way toward the front. The bailiff looked toward the judge, who gave a single nod. The moment was sanctioned. Diddy, seated at the defense table, turned slowly. At first, he didn't react. Then his face tensed. He leaned toward his attorney and whispered something, his eyes fixed on 50. 50 Cent walked up to the front and respectfully requested to testify under oath. He wasn't here for show, he said. No theatrics, no publicity. He came to speak the truth. Judge Harmon, clearly intrigued and cautious, asked if he had submitted any evidence to support his testimony. 50 lifted a manila folder from under his arm. Documents, screenshots, voicemails, photographic proof, he said plainly. The judge reviewed the submission and, after a moment of silence, nodded. You may proceed. Within seconds, every reporter in the room was tapping away. Text messages flew. Hashtags were created in real time. 50 testifies began trending before he had even taken the witness stand. But inside the courtroom, it was pin-drop silent. The man known for his bravado, for his trolling, for his public beefs, looked different now. Focused, measured, dead serious. I came here today not because I want to, he said, but because someone who trusted me is gone. And I believe the truth needs to be told. 50 Cent's first words as he settled into the witness stand sent a ripple through the room. Kim told me everything. He said their conversation started casually in 2017. Mutual friends, events, industry circles. We weren't best friends, he clarified, but we respected each other. We had private talks. I was one of the few people she felt she could confide in without judgment. He told the court that during those private moments, Kim Porter opened up about her fear. He said she used the exact words, "If something happens to me, it won't be an accident." Then came the bombshell. 50 revealed that Kim had shown him screenshots of emails, backups of text messages, and a password-protected drive stored in an encrypted cloud folder. She let him hear voicemails. One in particular stood out. It was a message from an anonymous number threatening her to stop digging for things that don't concern you. According to 50, Kim believed Diddy was behind it. She didn't have proof of that specific call, he admitted, but she knew his patterns. She knew how he operated. Then he dropped another shocker. Kim had been writing a memoir. She called it her redemption journal, he said. Not for fame, not for money, but so her kids would one day understand what she went through. But she was scared. According to 50, she told him Diddy had been following her movements. Her phones felt tapped. She noticed the same cars parked outside her house multiple days in a row. Security cameras inside her home would glitch without explanation. She said, "He's watching me. I can feel it," 50 recounted. He paused. The jury leaned in. Cassie closed her eyes briefly, as if absorbing the weight of it. She was scared of him, 50 said. Terrified, actually. And she had reason to be. He then told the court that Kim once showed him a screenshot of an Uber trip log, claiming it was Diddy's assistant arriving uninvited at her property at 3:41 a.m. She said he wasn't there to talk. He was there to remind her who's in charge. The prosecution asked if 50 had preserved any of this. He said yes. The judge allowed submission of 3 screenshots and a dated voicemail. "I'm not here for drama," he concluded. "I'm here because Kim knew she wouldn't get justice in life. Maybe now, in death, she finally can." As the courtroom leaned further into the growing storm, 50 Cent opened his manila folder and retrieved a printed email. "This one," he said, lifting the page, came from Kim's former stylist. The stylist, unnamed for safety reasons, had been in close proximity to both Kim and Diddy for years. According to 50, the email was dated just 2 weeks before Kim's death. It warned Kim to stop working on her memoir. "Drop the book," it said. "He knows." That wasn't fear-mongering, 50 told the jury. That was a warning from someone who'd seen too much. But the most shocking part of the email wasn't just the warning. It was a detail buried 3 paragraphs in. "He bought a gold casket a month ago for you." The courtroom fell deathly silent. 50 said when he first read that line, he thought it was hyperbole. But after she died, after I saw what she was buried in, I believed it. He told the court Kim had privately confided that she was in possession of footage, actual video files, from Diddy's infamous parties. He said she had tapes of him, of other men, of things I can't repeat in this courtroom. The footage, he claimed, was backed up to a hidden drive. A drive that mysteriously vanished from Kim's home during what police later deemed a routine burglary. He paused, looked directly at the jury. That footage didn't vanish. It was taken. The prosecution asked if Kim ever named names. 50 nodded. Clive Davis, Andre Harrell, and someone else, a billionaire. Kim said she had them all on tape, not just talking, participating. According to 50, Kim knew releasing the footage would cost her everything. Her safety, her career, maybe even her life. But she told me, "If I go down, I'm not going down quiet." He ended part 3 with a chilling quote Kim had written to him via encrypted email. "If I disappear, if I die, if anything happens to me that feels off, you know who did it. You always will." And then, slowly, he folded the paper and said, "Now, the rest of the world will too." The courtroom quieted as 50 Cent stepped back to the stand and asked the judge's permission to introduce a file Kim Porter had once shown him, titled simply, "Masters and Murders." With slow deliberation, 50 explained that Kim believed Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace, Biggie, were murdered not out of street beef, but through calculated behind-the-scenes decisions made by industry power players who saw both men as too outspoken, too powerful, and too in control of their own musical legacies. Kim, he claimed, uncovered this through a series of voicemails, studio recordings, and secondhand conversations. She told me in 2018 they plan to make icons out of dead men because dead men can't sue. The courtroom was stunned. 50 said Kim once confided that during a trip to New York in the late 90s, she had overheard a closed-door conversation between Andre Harrell and another unnamed executive. In it, they were allegedly discussing how Tupac's influence was threatening the future of East Coast industry control. She didn't have audio, but she kept notes. Handwritten, dated, and signed by her. She knew too much, 50 told the jury, and she had too much. When asked by the prosecution why she didn't go public, 50 looked directly at the jury. Because she was scared, because she was outnumbered, and because she knew what happened to Pac and Biggie. He submitted printed transcriptions of Kim's voice memos, where she named names Suge Knight, Andre Harrell, Jimmy Iovine, and suggested that they all knew Diddy had been involved in orchestrating tension that helped escalate into bloodshed. Everything Biggie had, his publishing, his royalties, it got locked up when he died. That benefited labels. That benefited Diddy. The gallery gasped. One juror wiped tears from her eyes. The rest leaned forward. The court was no longer just looking at Kim's death. They were beginning to suspect that she may have held the last remaining thread to unravel one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in hip-hop history. When 50 Cent returned to the microphone for the fifth time, his tone changed. It was darker, heavier. He wasn't just testifying about events, he was giving voice to the aftermath of a silenced woman. "You heard what Gene Deal said," he began. "Kim wasn't found in her bed. She was found on the bathroom floor. But when the news broke, the official statement said she died peacefully in her sleep. That was a lie." He paused. Then, "I got an email the night before her funeral from someone who claimed to have worked with the original coroner. They said the first autopsy showed traces of a toxin that shouldn't be there. They didn't say what it was, just that it was flagged, and that the full report got sealed." The judge allowed 50 to submit a printed copy of the email with names redacted. Attached to it was a statement from one of Kim's personal assistants. "She used to tell me, if I die suddenly, check the cameras, check the vents." 50 also submitted photos of Kim's home being ransacked, allegedly taken the night of her death. 2 laptops missing, 1 backup drive gone, and a handwritten sticky note taped to a mirror that simply said, "Don't forget who you are." The jury was silent. Then 50 dropped the next bomb. She had a book deal. It was done. Manuscript turned in. They were finalizing cover art. Next thing I know, that publisher went dark. Lawyers got involved. Everything stopped. And the book? It vanished. He showed an NDA sent by a company linked to Diddy's legal team, instructing any mention of Diddy be removed from the final manuscript, or the publisher would face litigation. And just like that, the truth disappeared, 50 said. The courtroom felt colder. When 50 Cent brought up Diddy's obsession with gaining full custody of the twins, the courtroom's energy changed once again. It was no longer just about Kim's fear for her life. It was about her children's lives. Kim told me, straight up, "If he ever gets custody, I'm done for. He'll have no reason to keep me around." He claimed Kim was preparing to move, quietly. New house, different name, private schooling for the girls in another state. She didn't tell Diddy. She didn't even tell most of her friends. But somehow, he found out, 50 said grimly. He submitted a private investigator's report confirming that Diddy had flown from New York to Los Angeles 2 days before Kim's death. Flight records were time-stamped. Private jet manifest included Diddy, 2 assistants, and an unnamed legal consultant. According to a source close to Kim, Diddy showed up at her house the next day, uninvited. Cameras outside the house captured his arrival. Footage 50 said was later lost. From that moment, Kim went silent, 50 said. And 2 days later, she was gone. He showed the court a digital copy of a letter Kim had written to her lawyer in 2018, just months before her death. The letter included details of Diddy's increasingly erratic behavior, violent threats, and an explicit warning. He said, "I'll never leave him without consequences." 50 concluded this part of the testimony with a chilling final quote from Kim. "If anything happens to me, don't let him raise my girls." The courtroom was dead silent. Even Diddy stopped writing in his notebook. His hand fell limp. His gaze stuck to the floor. The jury, now visibly shaken, had heard enough for one day, but the trial was far from over. The courtroom had already heard plenty of disturbing allegations from 50 Cent. But when he brought up the missing surveillance footage from Kim Porter's home, everything got darker. Standing firm, 50 addressed the judge and jury. Kim had security cameras installed, not just outside, but inside, in the hallway, the bedrooms, even facing her front door. He stated that Kim had told him during one of their last phone conversations that she'd become paranoid. She said, "They know I'm watching them now. I've got proof stored in 2 places. One cloud, one hard drive. If something happens to me, they better not say it was pneumonia." 50 then handed over an affidavit from a home tech contractor who serviced Kim's system 2 weeks before her death. The affidavit confirmed that the cameras were working perfectly and that the system was configured to automatically upload footage to a secure cloud account. But here's where it gets damning. The tech noticed that just 48 hours after Kim's death, the administrative credentials were accessed remotely from an IP address linked to Revolt Media, Diddy's own media company. That login didn't just view footage, it wiped files. When the LAPD asked for the recordings later, they claimed none were retrievable. "You're telling me she had a full surveillance system?" 50 asked the courtroom, "and the only footage missing is the night she died?" He paused. "You know who had motive. You know who had access. And now you know who had the power to cover it up." The jury was visibly shaken. Juror 6 clenched her jaw. Juror 11 scribbled frantically. Diddy sat motionless, his lawyers whispering behind him. The implication was deafening. The truth may have been captured on camera, but someone made sure it disappeared. With the tension already boiling, 50 Cent dropped another bomb. A direct message from Kim Porter to her ex, Al B. Sure, just days before her death. She sent him a voice note, 50 said. "You can't hear it now, but she said, and I quote, 'They know I'm going to talk. I'm scared.'" He then pulled up a screenshot, a message time-stamped just 48 hours before Kim was found dead. In it, Kim told Al B, "Sure, he keeps asking about my hard drive. I think he's planning something. If I disappear, it wasn't me." The court sat in stunned silence. 50 added, "Al B sure went public about this in 2020 on IG Live. But no one took it seriously. I did." The prosecution submitted that screenshot into evidence. Then came a twist no one was prepared for. 50 testified that 2 days after Kim's funeral, he received a private call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end simply said, "Back off, or you'll end up like her." According to investigators, the number was tied to a burner phone. That burner had been purchased in cash, but the SIM had pinged off a tower near a known bad boy office in New York. The courtroom gasped. 50 stared at Diddy. "I don't scare easy," he said, "and I sure as hell don't back down when someone makes a threat." The judge asked if he had reported it. "I did," 50 said, "and nothing happened. But now, I'm saying it in court, in front of the jury. Let's see who tries to shut me up now." When it came time for 50 Cent's closing words, the courtroom leaned in. Every juror, every journalist, even Diddy himself. 50 took a deep breath and began slowly. "I'm not here because I need press. I'm not here for clout," he said, locking eyes with the jury. "I'm here because I owe it to Kim." He paced slowly as he spoke. Kim wasn't crazy. She wasn't reckless. She was a mother, a woman trying to protect her kids. She knew secrets. She knew things about Diddy that even his lawyers probably don't know. Then, with an unmistakable sharpness, he declared, "Diddy ain't just an abuser. He's not just controlling. He's dangerous. Kim told me, face to face, if anything happens to me, it's him." She was scared. She said he would ruin her. Or worse. 50 submitted one last document, a signed memo from a former music label assistant detailing Diddy's obsession with cleaning up anyone who became a liability. The memo included a line, "He always says, 'Dead women don't talk.'" The courtroom froze. "I'm not a lawyer," 50 said, "but I know what murder looks like when it's dressed in $1 million suit. Y'all got the evidence now. Do something with it." Then he turned to Diddy, walked past him slowly, stared him down. "You always thought I was playing chess," he said, voice like gravel. "Turns out, I was holding the checkmate." Diddy didn't blink, but his face was blank. Not smug, not angry, just blank. And the jury saw it. The courtroom was silent as 50 Cent stepped down. Every eye followed him as he walked past Diddy's table. Diddy didn't flinch, but the tension between them was nuclear. This wasn't a rap beef. This wasn't trolling. This was testimony. Legal, under oath, and now part of the federal record. The judge called for a brief recess, but nobody moved. Reporters were too stunned to speak. Jurors sat gripping the edges of their seats, and the prosecution looked like they had just been handed the final nail for the coffin they'd been building all week. And in the corner, quietly, a clerk slid the last document into the evidence folder. The voicemail 50 Cent said Kim Porter sent just 1 week before her death. A voice barely above a whisper, recorded at 2:03 a.m. saying, "If they tell you I died of pneumonia, don't believe it. Check the cameras, check the servers. If you're hearing this, he got to me." The courtroom would later learn this recording had been saved on a protected server. Not even Kim's family had known it existed, but 50 did. He had protected it, just like he'd promised her. Outside, the media had already gone into overdrive. Hashtags like #Justice for Kim Porter and #Diddy Trial Bombshell trended worldwide. News tickers ran headlines that hadn't been possible even days earlier. 50 Cent testifies. Diddy had Kim killed. Kim Porter predicted her own death and left behind proof. And Revolt Media, Diddy's once untouchable empire, began to bleed. Stockholders called for emergency audits. Sponsors suspended contracts. Even longtime allies quietly removed collaborations from their websites and platforms. It was the slow collapse of a giant. Not from a scandal, but from the avalanche of truth. Back in court, the jury sat in stunned silence. The case was no longer just about abuse. It was about erasure. A woman erased, a truth erased, and a media machine, once bought and controlled, finally out of Diddy's reach. The judge reconvened court and made it clear. All evidence submitted today will move forward to the next phase of this trial. No delays will be granted. This testimony will not be stricken. And that was it. As Diddy sat there, chin low, shoulders heavy, he looked less like the mogul who built Bad Boy and more like the man Kim warned everyone about. For the first time in his career, he had no microphone, no audience cheering, and no control. Just silence. The kind that follows truth finally being heard.